Well, good day, my friends. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said great. I'm doing great. Today, we are going to go to Santa Monica and we're going to visit the grave of the man who played Otis the Drunk on the Andy Griffith Show, the great character actor HAL Smith. Daze with Jordan the Lion and you all. It begins right now. I've visited HAL before. He's pretty easy to find. And there's a photo of him on the outside of his final resting place. There he is. Now you know him. Now you know who we're talking about. Lovable Otis. Harold J. Smith. Guy had an absolutely amazing career. Over 300 credits, be it television, movies, or voice acting. I remember him most as Otis, also as the cartoon host on the Brady Bunch for that episode. But he was always in something. It seemed like you'd see him in something all the time whenever you'd watch a rerun. He had a pretty fascinating life, though. I mean, the guy was born in Michigan, raised in New York, and ended up becoming a DJ for WIBX radio in Utica. And then, since he was really into aviation, he joined the Air Force in 1943. And he was stationed in the Philippines. He was then transferred over to the Army Special Services Division. So much like many of the people that were actors that I've talked about that served, he ended up getting put in charge of a detail, putting on shows for the other troops and people like that. So he was enlisted in the men's club at the Far East Air Force headquarters. So he would plan and direct shows there, and then was discharged in 1946 as a sergeant with an American Campaign Medal. That was all before he even started his career. When he got out of the service in 1946, he ended up coming out to Hollywood, and it didn't take him long to start booking bit parts and different things. He was on the Donna Reed show and made several bit appearances before getting cast as Otis, the town drunk of Mayberry. Yet while making the rounds in Hollywood, being on The Texan and Dennis the Menace and The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet and the Red Skelton Show, he ended up landing his part as Otis. And he was, you know, the funny drunk. It's not something that people like to laugh about today or anything, but he really brought a humor to it, because the dynamic of him and Barney, the fact that there was this town drunk who was married, had a wife, but would still go out and get plowed, and then instead of bothering anybody, he could just let himself into jail. He could reach the key from his cell and he could just go to sleep, and then when he was done and woke up, he could have a meal that usually Andy'd bring over that Aunt Bee made or something like that, and then he could leave. But occasionally you get those moments where Barney was dead set on, you know, changing his life. He was going to make Otis go the straight and narrow, and those were always the funniest when those two were combating. And it was really funny, and it was, you know, something that a lot of people in real life were dealing with the sad side of it. And so as the show went on, the sponsors of the show actually decided they didn't like that character, and they didn't want to sponsor a drunk on the show, so they ended up removing him from the last couple of the show. And he himself was never a drinker. Don Knotts and Andy would both say that he never touched a drink or anything, but later on in life, he was proud to help the Mothers Against Drunk Driving by doing ads for them, PSA announcements. And also when they brought back the Andy Griffith cast to do Return to Mayberry, he was actually allowed to be in that. They brought him back for that, and by that point Otis was no longer drinking and was, I believe, the town tow truck driver, so they did give him a happy ending to his life in the series. Even though they took him out of the Andy Griffith show for the last couple of episodes and everything, Don Knotts left the show to go off and be a movie star, and when he did The Ghost of Mr. Chicken, he brought Hal Smith there to play Calvert Weems, who was basically the same character as Otis, but this guy had such an amazing career. I mean, he also took over the voice of Winnie the Pooh. A lot of people don't know that Hal Smith was in the first 4 original Winnie the Pooh shorts, and he was also, and since they combined those to make the first movie, he was the voice of Al and Winnie the Pooh, replacing Sterling Holloway. So in The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, that's his voice. One of my favorite things that I read was that in the mid-60s, Hal was given a children's television show called The Pancake Man, and it was actually sponsored by the International House of Pancakes. So some other notable things that he did, since he had upwards of over 300 credits, was that he played Roland Daggett in the early days of Mark Twain 15 Paces of Fame episode of Death Valley Days. He was on an episode of The Perry Mason Show. He was a restaurant manager on Leave It to Beaver. He was in The Great Race. He was also in Hogan's Heroes, and was also in The Three Stooges Meet Hercules. Portrayed King Theseus of Rhodes, and later provided the voice for the cartoon series of The Three Stooges. I think it was called The New Three Stooges. He was a drunk driver on Adam 12. He was on Petticoat Junction. Of course, I mentioned he was in The Brady Bunch as the Cartoon King. Then he also did all the voice acting, like I mentioned. He was on the Huckleberry Hound Show and Quick Draw McGraw. He did a bunch of Hanna-Barbera stuff, Walt Disney stuff. He was doing the voice of, I think it was Fred's dad on the Flintstones, Pink Panther, Looney Tunes, Yogi Bear. Man, this guy just worked all the time, absolutely all the time. Even doing voices on the Smurfs, one of my favorite, and Scrooge McDuck's rival, Flint Heart Glomgold. Frogs and Toads are friends, and Frogs and Toads together. He did the voice of the Toad. When Pinto Colvig, the original voice of Goofy, died, Hal took over the voice of Goofy and actually did it up until Mickey's Christmas Carol. On top of all the television and the movies that he did, he also did a ton of commercials, including Three Musketeers, United Van Lines, Hickory Farms, Toyota, Green Giant, General Mills, Mattel, Kellogg, Pizza Hut, Chicken of the Sea, Ivory Soap, Dr. Ross's Dog Food, Pioneer Chicken, Bell Telephone Company, Coca-Cola, and Chef Boyardee, just to name a few. You can see he's buried here with his family, but there's just not much about his personal life online at all. He never really talked about it much. All you could find is that he had one son, Terry, and when his wife, Louise, died in 1992, apparently his health started to fail, and it was in 1994 that he ended up having a heart attack and passed away, sadly. He did so much, I mean, way, way more than I could even mention, but I mean, just the fact that he could make a character like Otis so likable to where we can still, you know, laugh about him to this day. The context of, you know, it's not the fact that he's drunk that's funny, it's the way that he somehow outwits Barney as being drunk and just the way he's adapted to it and everything. It's just like, I know, like I said, people don't find that funny anymore, but when you watch that show, he's still one of the highlights because he was able to kind of do it in the right way, show it the right way. But again, like I said, in his later life, he was proud to make PSAs against it. So rest in peace, Hal Smith, Harold J. Smith. Thank you all for watching. We will see you next time. Goodbye.